Hey sports fans, Anthony with BBSN, and just doing a quick recap of the 1978 World Series between the Dodgers and Yankees, which I just completed using Glory Days Baseball. And happy with the way the results came out, well, minus the fact that the Dodgers won. But actually, in doing this project, in looking at those two teams in real life from 1978, as big a Yankee fan as I am, I honestly think the Dodgers on paper had the better team. Their everyday lineup, and they had the majority of their players, with the exception of catcher, it was usually the same 8 starting players in the field. They had better pitching, and their infield itself, I mean, Garvey, Lopes, Russell, and Say, that was a staple. In fact, I think probably the Dodgers and the Big Red Machine in the 70s at least had as consistent and potent a lineup as you'd run into. The outfield of Reggie Smith, Dusty Baker, and Rick Monday wasn't bad at all either. And add to that some great situational players. Manny Mota and Vic Davalillo, 2 of the premier pinch hitters, especially Manny Mota, in the history of the game. And even at that stage where they're both veterans, and you saw in the final game, Game 6 of the replay, how Vic Davalillo affected the outcome of that. He went 3 for 3 with a big home run, and just a tremendous natural hitter, as was Mota. Pitching staff, definitely outside of Guidry, you know, Guidry was 22 games over 500 that year. Without Guidry having a once-in-a-lifetime season, I mean, his 1978 season is probably, you could arguably put it among the top 3 of all time, no worse than the top 5. Looking at it in comparison, the other pitchers you put up there, Walter Johnson's 36-win season with the 1913 Senators. He single-handedly pitched them to second place that year, pretty much. Lefty Grove, 31-4 with the 1931 Philadelphia A's, and that, in judging it against the era that it occurred in, is probably the greatest single pitching season in the history of the game. To go 31-4 and have an ERA in the 2s like Grove did that season, with as high as offense was in both leagues. You can make an argument for Steve Carlton's 27-win season with the Phillies, and I think, I don't know the exact year on that, I think it was 72, 73, but he actually won a third of his team's games that year. So that goes up there. Then you have Guidry, and possible other inclusions, Jack Chesbrough's 1904 season or 1905 season with the New York Highlanders, where he won 41 games, tarnished a little bit by giving away the pennant on the last day of the season to the Boston Red Sox, or in a game against the Red Sox on a wild pitch, and the A's, Philadelphia A's, actually won the pennant that year. But so, you know, Guidry is definitely in that group, so top 5 for sure, in my opinion. But without him, if he even just had a normal good season, you know, a 21 game winning season, they don't even make the postseason. So outside of Guidry, the pitching staff was really mediocre that year. Figueroa, good season in terms of wins, but his whip was average at best. You know, and then beyond him, Catfish Hunter was probably actually the best pitcher statistically behind Guidry on that team, but had limited duty. He was only 12-6 due to injuries. Dick Tidrow, you know, a serviceable journeyman starter / reliever. You know, you can't really put that pitching staff up against who the Dodgers had. Tommy John, Don Sutton, and Burt Hooton were the big 3 in that rotation, and definitely, with the exception, Guidry was the best of all, you know, pitchers involved, but the next 3 starters all belong to the Dodgers, in my opinion, in terms of quality. The Yankees lineup, you could say it rivaled the Dodgers, and it was pretty consistent during the 70s too. standard lineup of Chambliss at first, Randolph at second, Dent at short, Nettles at third. And in the outfield, you had a combination of White, Rivers, Piniella, and Jackson after he came over from the A's when he wasn't the designated hitter. So yeah, the Yankees definitely had a potent lineup, but I just think on paper and especially on the mound, Dodgers were the superior team that year. So it makes sense or is acceptable that in the replay using Glory Days baseball that they did come out on top 4-2. Differences in real life in Game 6, the Yankees were able to rest Ron Guidry, and they trotted out Catfish Hunter for that game, which turned out to be the series clinching game for them against Don Sutton, who came back on 3 days rest, and he had lost to Guidry in Game 3. In an alternate reality, if the Dodgers had been up 3-2 heading back to LA in real life, pretty sure that Ron Guidry would have been on the hill for the Yankees in that Game 6, and then they would have taken their chances with Hunter in the deciding game. As it was, the strategy, which makes sense, was to start Hunter in Game 6, knowing that the Dodgers facing elimination would come back with Sutton, and then that would set up a matchup in Game 7 with Ron Guidry on the hill for the Yankees against most likely, well, probably Tommy John, who started the first game, or perhaps Bob Welch, the youngster. So anyway, the result, again, it came out how I thought it might play out, you know, and you can't argue with the Dodgers taking it. In terms of Glory Days baseball, I've, after the series, tweaked the design of the card a little bit. What you saw in the last 2 games is what's going to be on the card. But in terms of the game itself, it goes on the back shelf now while I work on the boxing game and get that ready to come out. Still shopping for a fair, in my opinion, estimate on print and cut cards. And a lot of that is the cards. They're just such a bizarre size. The boxing cards are 3.5 inches by 4 1/8. And I can take that 1/8 of an inch off and go 3.5 by 4 if I have to. But that's part of the reason it's not a standard postcard cut or business card cut or even a, I guess, easily configurable cut based on the estimates I've been getting back. Also still looking at the possibility of working with another developer on a distribution arrangement, and more news on that as it becomes available. So anyway, that's it for gaming news. And again, we'll do some Glory Days baseball, probably more, bring it out more in the fall during or toward the end of high school football season. I will be going back to coaching full-time. Taking an OC job at a high school that I coached at previously a couple of years ago. So after the high school season next year, definitely we'll have some more games of Glory Days baseball out there, as I'll have more team. Hopefully I'll have a couple of seasons rated fully by then. And you know, at that point we can start planning on a potential launch date for that game. And probably involving 1 or 2 people in some beta testing at that point as well. So stay tuned for that. But again, long down the road, probably late fall of 2019, early winter. In terms of the World Series, though, I wanted to do a recap of the statistics that we came up with in the replay on Glory Days. So we're going to do that next. All right, and here are the final stats of the 1978 World Series replay. Again, using Glory Days Baseball final beta prototype. And the Dodgers, they hit 276 as a team. In looking at the stats, Yeager, actually for him, had a probably better than average or could be expected series. He hit 231. The Dodgers did have 4 or 5 players actually over 300 in the series. Garvey at 308, Lopes at 320, Reggie Smith at 318, Rick Monday at 389, and Lee Lacy, who only had 11 bats but still clocked in at 364. And they hit a total of 7 home runs, 3 of them by Garvey. And in looking at the MVP for the Dodgers, the 3 that I look at, Steve Garvey, again a stat line of 308, 3 home runs, 6 RBIs, had a couple of doubles in there as well, struck out 4 times. Reggie Smith, he hit 318, 2 home runs, also 6 RBIs, which tied for the second most in the series. And he also drew 3 walks and struck out 3 times. And finally, looking at pitching for the Dodgers, Burt Hooton, the surprise star pitcher of the series, actually went 2-0, had a 2.25 ERA, 16 innings pitched and struck out 6, walking 2. He did give up a home run and had a whip of 1.06. So out of those 3, Garvey did his damage early in the series and tailed off a little bit at the end, but still solid performance, and his home runs were definitely big hits. Reggie Smith, he put the final game away. The Dodgers had the lead when he hit his 3-run blast, but that still kind of cemented the outcome. And Hooton, you know, if maybe I mean, both his outings were good. He went 8 innings in both, but I think I've got to go with Garvey as the MVP of the series, just for his overall performance and the fact that when he was hitting, his hits tended to be a little bit more impactful in the outcome. Other stats of note, Davey Lopes for the Dodgers, in addition to his .320 average, had a home run and also stole 3 bases. The only 3 bases the Dodgers stole, Bill North tried and he was caught stealing. And Vic Davalillo, who I mentioned earlier, only 1 appearance in the series, but it was an impactful one. 3 for 3, 2 runs scored, home run, 3 ribbies, and a walk. And Manny Mota in his single pinch hit appearance was 1 for 1. On the hill, Tommy John had a great first outing, a complete game shutout. Or not quite complete game, but yeah, he actually did go 9 innings. Scattering 9 hits. His second outing, he was roughed up a little bit, gave up 5 runs in that one. And really, nobody else on the Dodgers staff, their bullpen, quite frankly, was atrocious. Charlie Huff was the only reliever that didn't give up an earned run, but he only pitched a third of an inning. Their closer, Terry Forster, had an ERA of 6 despite getting 2 saves. He did give up a couple of runs in one of his appearances. And overall, the team had an ERA of 4.02 and a whip of 140, which is understandable against a potent Yankees attack, I suppose. The Yankees stats, without a doubt, if they had won the World Series, the definite MVP would have been Reggie Jackson. He definitely lived up to the Mr. October moniker, even in the replay, as Jackson hit .409 and slugged 4 home runs, knocked in 8, both World Series highs. He walked 4 times, struck out 4 times, and also had a double. And he was definitely the bright spot offensively for the Yankees. Nettles had a decent series. He hit .318 with a double, but only 1 RBI, so he didn't really produce in clutch situations. And Lou Piniella also was over 300 at .304. A couple of walks, couple of strikeouts, and 4 doubles, which was a series high, drove in 3. And Mickey Rivers also. Mickey Rivers did not start 2 games in real life in the series, so obviously in the replay he didn't, but in the games he did start. 6 for 17, .353 average, a couple of steals, and a couple of runs scored. Jackson also scored 7 runs in the series, which was a series high, beating Steve Garvey's total of 6 with the Dodgers. So had the Yankees triumphed as they did in real life, Jackson, as he was in real life, would have been the series MVP and cemented that Mr. October nickname. Where the Yankees got hurt, honestly, in this replay, they're starting pitching, and I mentioned it in the kind of wrap-up talk leading up to the stats here. you know, their starting pitching in 1978 was really outside of Guidry, nothing more than average, again, in my opinion. But as a Yankees fan, I think if anything, I tend to be kind to them. But yeah, they just weren't very solid on the hill after Guidry. Ed Figueroa, again, I think he went 20-9 in 78, but you know, a lot of that was due to offensive support. In the series, he was terrible. 0-1, 6.10 ERA, gave up 2 home runs, walked 3, struck out 4. 10 runs, which is a series high among pitchers. 7 of them were earned due to some defensive lapses in his first outing. Guidry pitched, as you would expect, a 25-3 Ron Guidry to pitch in 1978. He only made 1 start, and again, if the Yankees had been down 3-2 heading into Game 6, no doubt in my mind Guidry would have got the ball for that game, but smart call to save him for Game 7 if needed. So he only got 1 trip, but it was a good one. A complete game 6-hit shutout in which he struck out 8, did not walk anybody, ERA or whip, sorry, of .67. Outside of that, Catfish Hunter had 1 decent start. He was 0-for-1, but 1 terrible start. He had an ERA of 5.73, and Jim Beatty, who was a surprise starter in real life, got the start in Game 5 and was the recipient of some good Yankee offense and 12-2 win in real life. Not so much here. He went 6 1/3, gave up 5 runs, and was tagged with the Game 5 loss. 7.11 ERA and a 190 whip. Out of the bullpen, Yankees bullpen was solid overall. Lyle, Gullett, and Gossage, they went a combined 6-7 innings and did not give up an earned run. Probably should have gone with one of them more. Eastwick, who appeared in 5 games in the series, had a couple of good outings, 2 very bad outings, a 6.14 ERA and an 0-1 record. Lyle got the other win for the Yankees in this series. And, you know, he's someone against the Dodgers I wouldn't have used much anyway. 1978 was a really just an average season for him as well. He was coming in on the tail end of his career. And even you'll see in the way his card in Glory Days Baseball was rated, not stellar numbers, and against the Dodgers, who were loaded with potent right-handed bats, just didn't make sense to pitch him more than I did. But in the 1 1/3 innings he did pitch, he only gave up a single hit. So, and the 3 of them, Lyle, Gullett, and Gossage, had whips of .75, .67, and .75 respectively. Overall, the Yankees team whip was 1.37, 4.33 ERA, and they actually out-hit the Dodgers 282 to 276. 5 total home runs for the Yankees, 4 of those again by Jackson. 7 for the Dodgers, and again, Lopes, Garvey, Smith, and Davalillo were the hitters that procured those. 10 doubles and a triple for the Yankees, 5 doubles for the Dodgers, and overall a total of 57 hits for New York and 55 for LA. So that is the statistical wrap-up. Again, happy statistically with how the game played out, or the series replay played out with the Glory Days Baseball. So happy with the prototype of that game. Definitely finalized with the mechanics and everything about the game. Like I said, I made a couple of minor tweaks to the appearance of the cards just to, again, make the game flow a little bit more intuitive, but no changes to the last edition that I finished this series with. So that game, again, is going on the back burner until later in 2019, and in terms of development, full focus now will be on getting the boxing game ready to come out and getting back to the normal replays on this channel. We will have a Dempsey Marciano rematch coming up with Glory Days Boxing, the final version of that, and also back to the Ferguson-Jenkins 1969 payoff pitch replay. Start 23 is up next for Fergie. And finally, some Soccer Blast with the resumption of the Tottenham Spurs 2017-18 replay. So that's what's upcoming for the channel. As always, thank you for the support, and whatever game you play, keep rolling for the fences, the knockout, the finish line, the goal, or whatever your preference is. Until next time, have a good night, everyone. Thanks again for watching.